Let me introduce myself. My name is Abbas Bhatt. I'm from London. I'm chairman of Kashmir National Party and a human rights activist. I think Mr. Khan, you'd come and sir. Name Khan, sir.
My name is Naeem Khan. I'm the chairman of the Organization for Human Rights in Asia and the General Secretary of Kashmir Culture Center.
Mr. Ishaq Khan, sir.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Muhammad Ishaq Khan. I am from Pakistani Administrative Kashmir from District Sodnoti. And I am chairman of Jammu Kashmir Social Justice Party. And I am living in Brussels in Belgium.
Welcome, sir. Welcome on the board. Dr. Rizwan Rumi, sir.
Greetings to all. This is Dr. Rizwan Rumi from Srinagar, Indian administered Kashmir. I'm a social activist as well as human rights activist. Thank you very much, sir.
And Councillor Mushtaq Mughal, sir.
Thank you. What's up? Good afternoon from London to everyone. My name is Councillor Mushtaq Mughal. I'm from Neelam Valley, but I'm settled in London. That's my brief introduction. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sir.
My name is Peter Florian Schütz. I'm a member of the Social Democratic Party and member of the Vienna City Council, which is only the district parliament of Vienna. And I'm the chairperson of the Committee of International and European Affairs and also spokesperson for human rights affairs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Welcome, sir, on the board. So I was trying to give you a brief history of LoC, basically. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go back and look on this, what is happening on line of control on LoC, it's not bad for me to call it line of crime, basically. All sort of crime is happening on LoC at the moment. And how it come through is when the British Raj actually depart from India, from Indian subcontinent on 15th August 1947, it gave birth to a new Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And coincidentally, India became independent as well. The plan at the time held the motive of dividing India into a manner where the Muslim will move to Pakistan and the non-Muslim would remain in the new independent India. Before partition, India was in two parts. One part was where it had full control by the British Raj, 100% control of the British Raj. But at the same time, there was another more than 500 princely states who were actually semi-independent states controlled by the British, but also they have their own what they call it Maharajas and Rajas, etc., who have the control on those states. And Jammu and Kashmir was one of the princely states at that time. Because the reason of explaining why there was in two different parts, because the division of India, which was under the Taqsim Hind rule, the law applies quite different. Law applies on those where the Muslims are, they go to Pakistan, and those non-Muslims, they will remain in India. Basically only applies to the mainland of India, which was actually controlled by the British at that time. But as far as principal states are concerned, they have the third choice. Either they can join India, they have the right to join Pakistan, or they also have the right to remain independent when the rest of the India was not. So in that sense, Kashmir was allowed or had the choice to become India. The formula, which is the Taqsim Hind, did not apply to the 500 princely states. This of Kashmir, a princely state also by choice choose to sign the standstill agreement with Pakistan, leading it to become independent as well. India also asked more time to sign any agreement, which means India also have no objection or no issue actually if Jammu and Kashmir state become as an independent state. Kashmir issue remained unresolved for more than 70 years now. The issue was created when the British rule ended in Indian subcontinent in 1947. Kashmir was free state comprising of around 84,000 square mile, 85,000 square mile more or less. And they had a border with India, Pakistan, China, and Central Asia. The state became occupied by the neighboring countries in October 1947 after an armed conflict arose between India and Pakistan. Peace was established when ceasefire took place after the UN Security Council adopted its first resolution on 13th August 1948, in which both India and Pakistan promised to organize a referendum and facilitate the people of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, in a free and fair manner to exercise their right to choose their future through a ballot. Since 1949, more than 70 years have passed. Both countries have failed to fulfill their promises, while the signatories to the ceasefire agreement failed to fulfill their obligation in spite of all efforts. Today's topic is LoC Peace Mission. This is also, we had a small organization recently adopted on the name of LoC Peace Mission as well. Basically to work out for the betterness of the people living alongside the line of control. Also, there are line of actual control, LAC, separates Indian controlled territory from Chinese controlled territory of Jammu and Kashmir. It is a big empty region and nearly 50 to 100 kilomiles distance is maintained by the armies of India and China. So going back to LoC, originally known as the ceasefire line, the first war between India and Pakistan over JK territory gave birth to ceasefire line. It was named under Karachi Agreement in July 1949, where military representatives from both sides signed the agreement. It was redesignated as the line of control following the Shimla Agreement, which was signed on 3rd July 1972. Part of the former princely state that is under Indian control is known as the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Ceasefire line changed to LoC in 1972. Line remained the same from the middle of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, but in 1972, after the birth of Bangladesh, which was previously as East Pakistan, that became Bangladesh, and so the ceasefire line agreement changed into line of control in 1972 after Shimla Agreement, signed by the Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto at that. The line of control is a military control line between the Indian and Pakistani controlled parts of the formerly princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, a line which does not constitute a legally recognized international boundary but serves as the de facto border. So I think we'll go back to our panel now. I will request Mr. Rizwan Rumi, our first panelist, to express his views on LoC. Dr. Rizwan, sir, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here for the deprived people of my land living across the borders of J&K. Frederick Douglass has said, where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor the property will be safe. To continue, sir, as you have given a brief description about the geographical location of our borders, I shall simply put it in in a very brief manner, but in a detailed actual location, what LoC and what LAC is, and that is very important to understand the Jammu and Kashmir situation right now, sir. The borders of J&K, sir, around, sir, are you getting me?
No, you carry on.
Carry on, please.
Okay, sir. The borders around J&K formed by the LoC and the line of actual control that divides the state into 3 areas controlled by India, Pakistan, and China is one of the most complex frontier systems in the world. The competing claims and perspectives on J&K is an important factor in understanding the border areas. India's official position is that J&K is an integral part of India, confirmed and ratified by the Instrument of Accession. India has a belief and India claims that state is entirety, including the parts that are under Pakistan's occupation and Chinese control. Sir, Pakistan divided its occupied territories, carving out a separate state called Northern Areas and ceding to China a chunk to the far northeast of the state. Officially, it maintains that the entire territory of J&K is disputed. The Chinese position on J&K is in line with that of Pakistan for the most part, although China is more flexible on the claim on the Pakistan administered territories. It maintains the part of the state under its occupation is legal and final. Meanwhile, the international community sees the entire state as disputed territory with divisions marked by the LoC between Indian and Pakistani administered territories and the LAC line of actual control between Indian and Chinese control. Sir, in a tense geopolitical scenario such as this, people living along the borders are for the most part powerless, with little control over their environment, and are extremely vulnerable to physical and psychological injury. People living in border villages can find themselves caught in the direct line of fire during wars, even during minor skirmishes and other such incidents. The villages and nearby areas are also striven with landmines, making people vulnerable. Mine incidents can cause death or severe injury. Militarizing fighting can also lead to the destruction of homes and properties. The discourse on their sufferings, although covered extensively by the media, often ignores the other side. The plight of residents on either side is similar. Neglecting to take into account the impact of any action on people on the other side of the border does not help to build a case for peace, but instead perpetuates war and hostility. Besides death and destruction, people living in border villages are often subject to dislocation and displacement, which not only has a physical impact on people, but also psychological. No matter what the scale of hostility and action along the borders may be, some degree of displacement always occurs. Repeated dislocation is a reminder of the political and cartographic divisions and often involves some form of physical and psychological brutality. Sir, being forced to leave your home, being deprived of land, and being denied education and health care can have an adverse effect on the communities. As an outcome of the wave of displacement caused by repeated cross-border hostility, innumerable people left their homes, and in this process, their families are divided and suffered psychological and socio-economic consequences. Sir, we have started an initiative to be the voice of the voiceless people living along the borders of Jammu and Kashmir. Those very people who have been deprived of every basic human facility even. So every day we got the news of death and destruction there. And the world community have forgotten them totally. Nobody even try or wish to speak on the plight of these very people. So our initiative is totally humanitarian. We just wish to talk about these people, that these people also matter. Their lives also matter. Their property also matter. If not we, then who will talk about these people? So is this a crime to live along the borders? So is this a crime be a resident of the LoC? So their only crime is that first we divided their families. Now every day there is death and destruction. So what we wish to do, we wish to be a voice. We wish to be simply a channel to take the plight of these very people, not only at the national level, but at the international level. Sir, uniting these families divided by the LoC could be a bridge between the competing political positions. Sir, we will work for the opening of communication channels across the LoC that can be extremely helpful. At present, India and Pakistan does not permit telephone service across the border, but this, along with easy access to internet, would enable divided families to connect and interact with their kins. Facilitating the movement of people across the LoC should be a priority for both the governments, but they have forgotten their duties, especially focusing on easing the process of issuing entry permits. So we have resolved that we will work for these people in the form of forcing the government to work effectively for these people. So let me quote a simple example. From last 70 years, the government is there, has not been in a position to simply construct a safe passage for these people or simply a bunker for these people. So every day we listen to the news, every day we hear the news of killings, but I haven't seen till now any person have a concern about these people. Even there is a feeling like that these people does not exist or these are not the humans. Sir, further involving these members of the divided families in conferences, in seminars and discussions on resolving the Kashmir conflict would bring their issues to the forefront and ensure they are addressed, and we wish and we will work for the same. In addition, sir, the government and the international community should consider opening up of new routes of cross-border movement. This would not only benefit the divided families, but also encourage wider movement and interaction with different communities. So organizing socio-cultural events too could help to boost the interaction and cross-border movement, and we will work for the same. Sir, there must be a cross-border dialogue for trade and people-to-people contact that can boost their economy and cultural ties to benefit the both countries, not only the people living there. So our initiative is a humanitarian initiative without any political motive. It is totally a group of people who just try to wish and work for the people living across the borders of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rumi Saab. If you look back, actually, the birth of LoC itself was a violation of human rights. Birth took place in the middle of the community, and it did not care for the many villages
Exactly.
and communities. It separated families
Sir.
were living apart, unable to ever safely meet again. To add to the sources, authorities used electro-cutting wires actually over there to build the LoC and used landmines in areas close to the LoC. So our next speaker is Dr. Ishaq Khan Saab, who is the chairman of Social Justice Party from Brussels, Belgium, sir. So he is from Belgium. Dr. Ishaq Khan Saab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Mr. Naim Saab, for providing me opportunity to speak on behalf of Line of Control Peace Mission. As I was given responsibility to speak on aims and objectives, so I will try to stick with my topic because we all are social and as well as political workers. So I don't want to go into other things. That's why I have a written speech, and I will put some points, aims and objectives of over this specific Line of Control Peace Mission. I'm really thankful to Mr. Peter, who has given time to us and given an opportunity to us to speak on the behalf of over innocent people. The atrocities are committed against them, and the basic human rights has been denied for our people. Also, I'm thankful to my panel, Wasbar Saab and Councillor Mushtaq Mughal Saab, and Dr. Rizwan Romi, who was speaking on behalf of Line of Control Peace Mission, very eagerly, very aggressively, and I'm very much thankful to everybody. So I will start with saying that peace is the way out of iniquity and violence and a golden ticket to enter a new, brighter future for humankind. All of us are important in the epic's endeavor, and the future generations need every hand they can get to receive a moral, a more equal, peaceful, and beautiful world. Line of Control Peace Mission is a commune wide open for those who, with utmost verve and passion, deeply empathize with those suffering since long and thus intend to bring about a progressive change in their life. Our deep agony and discomfort has made home in our hearts a persistently our sense of uneasiness, and sometimes guilt agitates our soul and wrenches our conscience. Thinking about ones who spend each day in relentless fear of losing their loved ones, of their homes being razed to ground in a jiffy, their miserable lives hanging by a thread, moving unsteadily in the desolate, unknown future with little hope. Here we are talking about the people living on both sides of Line of Control, which divides the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Our vision is to magnify the outreach of various governmental endeavors to these people who mostly remain untouched or just slightly impacted by the schemes or projects implemented by the government. Our immediate aim is to provide necessary rehabilitation, basic daily facilities through our volunteers, and to ensure proper channeling of development, cohesion, and empowerment of people. Our long-term goal will focus on making both the governments indulge in a peaceful process of deliberation and discussion to find a permanent solution to the long-pending issue of Jammu and Kashmir. We resolve to take peace on both sides of Line of Control and warrant safe and decent existence of people of which they are rightly entitled to, like the rest of us. We aim to resolve all disputes, conflicts with proper procedural requirements of insightful discussions, debating with enough space being provided for expression of every line of thought, with complete eschewing of violent means, war or weapon. To reach out to United Nations, Amnesty International, and other human rights organizations to play their part in putting an end to bloodshed on ceasefire line of Jammu and Kashmir. Line of Control Peace Mission, a non-political entity consisting of vibrant, selfless members of Jammu and Kashmir living across the world, endeavors how not to metamorphose the paradise JK into an ideological battlefield with shellings and blitzing sucking the very life out of peace-loving people who are equally entitled to living with dignity and security. Our motto is, their lives matter too, equally as yours. To achieve our aims, we have unanimously agreed to establish a central advisory board and 2 regional boards on both sides of line of control, that is, one in Indian administrative Kashmir and another regional board in Pakistan administrative Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. So nice presentation, sir. My next request is to Councillor Mushtaq Mughal Saab. He's from London, but basically homeland is from Neelam Valley. Neelam Valley is the area which is the mostly affected part of LoC at the moment, especially on 13th of November, I think it was 13th or 14th of November, with the heavy shelling from both sides. It really affects the area of that people, and Mr. Mughal plus his family actually very badly affected, but 4 or 5 of their houses been burnt to ashes. Councillor Mushtaq Mughal sir, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Bhatt Saab, and thank you, Naeem Khan Saab and Mr. Peter, for your time. Indeed, it's a good opportunity for all of us who have recently agreed to form this LoC Peace Mission. The objective has been clearly stated by my colleague, Dr. Ishaq Khan. Primarily, we are looking into the facilitation, how we can normalize the situation on line of control. Is there any kind of the work we can do sitting abroad in different countries? I mean, we are overseas Kashmiris. I think we have more responsibility than the people of Jammu and Kashmir in both part in Pakistani administered Kashmir and Pakistani administered Kashmir, because they have their local issues. As you can see, the Jammu Kashmir dispute has gone beyond from India and Pakistan. Now, the 2 big powers, China and America, United States of America, basically they are very much interested to position themselves in that part of the world. Recently, you must all have the statement from President of the United States. He clearly stated that China is basically after our piece of lunch. I mean, he is after that. So this was a very soft word said by the President of the United States. But if you look into the United States China containment strategy, Mr. Peter, you must have looked at, that clearly states that United States of America is basically trying to engage with the South Asian states to strengthen their presence in the South Asia. But at the same time, he has to face the 2 rivals, China and Russia. Basically, they have now built an alliance and they're bringing the other countries in. Recently, you have seen there was a tension between China and India on the territory of the Jammu and Kashmir state, which is Ladakh. It is admitted by the Indian foreign minister that over 1,000 square mile territory has been occupied by the Chinese forces. That territory is basically territory of the Jammu and Kashmir state. When we talk about the Jammu and Kashmir state, it means we are talking about the Indian administered Kashmir and the Pakistani administered Kashmir. The region under Indian controls are Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. And the region under Pakistani administered part are the Gilgit-Baltistan and the Azad Kashmir. So now there is a China economic corridor going through this Gilgit-Baltistan, which will route down to the Gwadar port. That's the basically core concern now. If you see this geopolitical situation, which is very concerning, for me as an analyst or as a student of the politics and the diplomacy, I have realized that now even the situation upcoming time is going to be even harder for the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. Before it was the India and Pakistan, now China and the United States of America, they are coming face to face. You must have seen the mobilization by the United States of America into the Arctic, and they are now getting to the South China Sea. They're just trying to confront the China from Straits of, they're just trying to focus on the issue of Taiwan in this. But it's directly linked to the Jammu and Kashmir because they need a very strong partner in that region. And recently their announcement was that India is the basically leader of South Asia. So this basically gave the clear-cut message that there is a big fight we should just expect, whether it's going to be the direct fight, whether it's going to be the proxy wars. This is exactly they are going to do it now. And now they are shifting the policy ex-President Trump has. Now they are trying to make their base in Afghanistan, where they can challenge the Russia and they can challenge the China as well. And you know, the Pakistan is of course one of the concerns for them as well. So this is basically now the Jammu and Kashmir has been flashed as a nuclear war flashpoint. I mean, it's not easy. You must have noted the statements from the Indian regime and the Pakistani regime as well. They have clearly stated at several occasions that there will be a distraction. Pakistani Prime Minister said we are a smaller country, and if India invades into the Pakistani administered Kashmir, then there will be a war. It will go beyond the imagination. This is exactly the word he has used. So indirectly, there's the nuclear threat. It's not a nuclear threat. This is a reality. The both countries, they will go into the nuclear war over Kashmir. So now here is a responsibility of the international community to jump in to actually support the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. We 0.6 million people on the line of control in this Pakistani administered Kashmir. I don't know how much are on the other side of the line of control. Maybe Dr. Rumi will be in position to give us the stats if he has any. So these 0.6 million people, they are on the line of control in 8 districts of the Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Now, Economic Times of the India and the multiple newspapers of the Pakistan, Dawn and the Express Tribune, they have stated that Indian side say over 5,000 ceasefire violations have done by Pakistan. The Pakistani newspaper says over 4,500 ceasefire violation across the line of control has done by the India. So this data itself is a tangible evidence for the international community to build the case. Yes, there is something happening which is not just a human rights violation, actually is a war crime. The both countries, like Mr. Butt mentioned, on 13th of November, Mr. Peter, what the Indian Army did, they did unprovoked firing across the line of control. And particularly they targeted the Neelam Valley sector where I belong to. And there was no provocation from the Pakistani side. This is, I can say you with the full conviction. I mean, according to my investigation. After that, they replied to them. So it was a horrible bombardment with the buffer guns. They targeted the civilian population. 5 houses of my family, including my own house, we newly built. They were destroyed. They were targeted by the mortar bomb shells. 2 of my family members got injured. And this is not the first time my family has suffered before that. I have lost my young brother, like 22-year-old. The Indian Army fired and killed him. And then my 3 nieces and 1 nephew, they were killed as well. And one of my nephew, he's disabled basically, he cannot even walk. I will at some point share the videos with you as well. Yeah. So but the point is, whatever is happening there, Pakistani and the Indian media, they don't try to highlight this. They don't even tell in the news, except you will see a very little news in one of the local newspapers. So that gave us basically indication that we are suppressed and oppressed to the level where we really need the help from international community. The people who believe in human rights, when injustice anywhere is a threat to the justice everywhere. If people sitting in the Europe, West, and other countries, if it's happening today there, and you're not gonna stand up and you're not gonna take up this issue. I mean, this is the issue of the human rights, and this is the issue of the self-determination as well, and which is accepted by the United Nations Security Council if you see its resolution. But now this peace mission, we are all together. We basically are very neutral and is a basically kind of the civil society are going to just help the people on the line of control, to just help them in kinds and material, collecting their data and voicing for them at the regional level, at the national level, and at the international level. These are the basically objectives what understood from Mr. Ishaq's and we agreed in our meeting as well. So the facts that international community has more and more responsibility, particular, you're a member of parliament from the Vienna, which is the center of the Europe. You can voice there for the people of the Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. Like Mr. Rumi said, there's a line of control. If it's 100-yard distance, you cannot come and see your relatives. If you have to come, you have to travel 2,000 to 3,000 miles, go to the Indian capital, then fly from there to the Pakistani capital. Still, you are not allowed to go into the Kashmir territory. They ask you to just meet in their capitals. These are the miseries of the local people who are separated from their loved one. They cannot speak to them. They cannot talk to them. Like you said, Mr. Rumi said recently, there is no telecom connection between them. They don't allow you to do that. Even you have to, face all these hurdles and obstacles we have recently seen during the lockdown and the Indian administered Kashmir. The people suffered a lot. Their economy were destroyed. Okay, and then they start the integral part of the Indian government. India, the Jammu and Kashmir, the Pakistan side is a juggler van of them. They are not given their right. Even if you look into the United Nations resolutions, frankly speaking, I personally don't condone those resolutions, because these resolutions give you the two options, either to accede India or to Pakistan. Where are the real stakeholders, which are the people of the Jammu and Kashmir? They need to basically decide whether they want to stay independent, whether they want to join any of these two states. That's lacking. I think we need to voice that, particularly, Mr. Peter, I will refer the 5th January 1949 resolution of the United Nations Security Council. I think we need to hit hard on that resolution and include the will and the wishes of the people of the Jammu and Kashmir should be there. So this is the larger prospect of that. What we can do for the people of the line of control is, like my friend Dr. Ishaq has said, there are two regional boards now. One is Pakistani administered board and one is the Indian administered Jammu and Kashmir board. So what we will request you, if your colleagues, your peers in your parliament, if you can just coordinate with us through Naeem Khan Saab, so we can just provide you the real statistics, what actually is happening on the line of control. What the both states are trying to do is suppressing us from raising our voice. Whether people are affecting this side of the line of control or the other side of the line of control, the children, they cannot go to school. I would request personally, if the European Union can send a delegation with the experts who can just assess the level of the trauma the people of the line of control have been going through. So these are the basically area where we need to just put our efforts. We can just support them, the people whose houses are destroyed. Because I personally can share with you, the government of the AJK, which is a Pakistani administered part, is called Azad Jammu and Kashmir government. Can you imagine if your 10 million house is destroyed, they will offer you 100,000 rupees. Okay, which is a peanut. Like they offered me compensation. We built a house, spent 10 million on that. They offered us 100,000 rupees, where you cannot build even a small tank of the water with that money. So this is the kind of the negligence, ignorance. There is no relief, there is no rehabilitation, relief and rehabilitation at all for the people of the Jammu and Kashmir living on the line of control. So these are the basically components which we need to address with the international NGOs at the same time when the issue happens.
I have questions to Mr. Rumi and to Mr. Mughal. So the India claims that whole Kashmir belongs to India. So I am unable to understand why there is a ceasefire violations. Why did it start? There must be some reasons.
The point is this.
Okay, Dr.
Point is this. That is their claim. India is claiming, but that is not acceptable. Their claim is not acceptable because it's only a portion of land which they have occupied, and there is another portion of land that another country has occupied.
My question is why they start firing on the line of control. There must be some reasons.
No answer.
Do you want me to reply that question, Dr. Rumi?
Yeah, anyone can reply.
Khan Sahab, if you remember in 2003, in 99, when Pervez Musharraf waged war in Kargil, that was basically in response to the Indian Army ceasefire violation on the line of control, because they were continuously firing on that. And there was in the Indian stance is basically the people from the Pakistani administered Kashmir, they do go to the other side of the line of control into the Indian occupied Kashmir, and they help the people there to fight the Indian army. This is the Indian stance. Okay. If you look into this argument of the India, then you look into the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention, chapter 4 and 2, if I'm not wrong, they give you the right that any group, any community, any nation, if they fight for their independence, they have the right to to start the armed struggle. So the Indian claim becomes null and void here. International law protects you, yes.
Let's have the speech of our chief guest first of all. I request Peter, actually, after listening of all the speeches from our panel, actually. Mr. Peter, floor is yours, sir. I want to see actually what you say about it.
Okay, thank you very much for the very interesting information. The Social Democratic Party stands for the right of self-determination for all people. And so it's very interesting for me, and I understand your problems and your topic very well. We believe in the equality of people and peaceful coexistence, regardless of origin, social status. Good coexistence, regardless of creed, religion, and language, are very important for us. We respect and support human rights, democracy, and democratic values. We condemn attacks on these values in any form by whomless. As a human rights spokesman, I'm very happy to be with you and assure you of my support. I will put the subject on the agenda of the Vienna City District and the City Council, and I will publicly recall it in Vienna and in Europe. I think it's a forgotten conflict, and this is one of the main. I will also bring it up to the European meetings. I'm a member of the Committee of Regions by the European Parliament and also member of the Congress of Regions and Cities in the Council of Europe. In both institutions, I will discuss it and I will bring it on the agenda to look forward for support for your issue, for your topic, because I think it's very important. It's very important. And it's the main interest for all people who are fighting in human rights. Perhaps we will be able to decline some joint projects in Vienna and elsewhere and implement some things. And I think I'm a little bit optimistic. Little to do about discuss it, but maybe also to bring things in mood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Khan Sahib, you want to say something, sir? Name Khan sir.
So I wanted to point out some facts. According to the Karachi agreement, both sides, India and Pakistan, were agreed to deploy their troops 500 meters away from the LoC. So this was a demilitarized zone, but they violated their commitment. If they can follow this agreement, so my suggestion is we should campaign that there should be a vacant area 2 kilometers from each side. There should be UN blue helmet forces to prevent the ceasefire violation and the human rights violations. Even if they can practice their commitment, their agreement, I am sure there would not be human rights violation and ceasefire violation. So India claims that the Pakistan sent militant and support militancy in the Indian administered Kashmir. That's why they are firing. So there must be some space, some medium to stop all this propaganda and all this practice. So my suggestion is we should struggle to safeguard the people living on the LoC. And there are a lot of possibilities which we can work out. So this is not a bad situation as the LAC in the Chinese Indian border. There were Indian and Chinese army, they were not weapons. They were not carrying any weapons. And this was an agreement on 1996 between the Congress government and the Chinese government. So why India and Pakistan cannot have such an agreement? So there are some possibilities which can prevent this human tragedy and the human rights violation.
Peter, one very simple question from Peter. Peter, the human rights standard actually in Europe, including Vienna, is very high. I mean, the government, the people actually, they take care of the human rights side. Is it possible that whatever aid actually or any business they do with India and Pakistan, they make it conditional with the human rights standard?
Yeah, it's not easy to say. I think the standard in the European Union is high, that's correct, but it's not as high as it should be. And on the other hand, it's not usually to intervene in conflicts in other countries, but we have to discuss it. And you see, I think the main problem is that it is a forgotten conflict. Nobody discussed it and nobody knows exactly. So it's very interesting for me to get the information from you. And I have to tell you, this information is unknown in far parts of Europe. And first of all, we have to inform the men. And so we will do with the help of Namit Khan and other ones. And the second step could be ask the governments and the European Commission does it and to prepare an intervention. But it's the second step. The first step is to discuss it inside and to put in information to the people. And the second one is an action from the European Union.
Okay, anybody, any question?
I think it was December 2020 when United Nations Military Observer Group on India and Pakistan is called UNMOGIP. Their vehicle was traveling into the Jhelum Valley, and that was even targeted by the Indian Army as well. I can send you those pictures if you want alongside that video.
I'll send this.
But the fact is that this is one of the evidence for the Peter once you try to bring this into the agenda item.
India claims that after the Shimla agreement, the mandate of the UNGO lapsed because in the Shimla agreement, India and Pakistan agreed that all bilateral issue, including Kashmir, will be solved by mutual dialogue. I will say only one thing. This is the bottom line. I think for our today's meeting and for the whole conflict, somebody says according to international standard regarding ceasefire, the most effective tools to maintain peace are extended demilitarization zones along this frontier. The presence of neutral observers and Joint Commission for Dispute Resolution. We should struggle for this. This is the only way.
So my point is very simple, that on the base of LoC Peace Mission, we can't blame India, we can't blame Pakistan. We only work out on the humanitarian basis. And if we want to do something extra, then we have to find the full statistics from the line of control of that side and then line of control of this side. And thank you very much, gentlemen.